welcome everybody. So, Hare and the Tortoise, the race is on for in-house creativity. I'll just give you a little introduction for the session in case you've just kind of wandered here. But the race is on for implementing AI and powering up in-house creativity. This isn't just a battle between in-house teams and agencies. It's a thrilling hare and tortoise race where agility, innovation, and strategic foresight will determine the winners. From enhancing creative capabilities to automating routine tasks, AI is reshaping the creative landscape. So today, I'm joined by three experts on my panel here. And before we dive into the areas that are affecting creatives most, in-house and agency, it'd be great if you could just do some little introductions. Sabrina, do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Sabrina Godden. I'm Global Creative Director at Vodafone. I'm heading up their global in-house studio. We're sitting in our headquarters in London, and we're working together with our 12 markets across Europe.
Hi, I'm Holly Mckinlay. I'm the Director for Strategic Comms and Brand at WWF, the conservation organisation, not the wrestling. I lead all the UK brand and marketing work, but working with our global organisation as well.
Hi, I'm Tabitha Winter. I'm a creative operations consultant. I work with the Inside Out community advising their members. I've worked both agency side and in-house agency side, done some fairly big things in creative operations, setting people up for efficiency and optimization.
Thank you. So I got all three of you on this panel, and Sabrina and I worked together to create this panel because all of you have got interesting perspectives on AI. But I think what would be a good starting point is for us to understand the landscape. I think the session before us was kind of, touching on what stages people are at with adoption, but let's get a little bit more granular in terms of what's going on for in-housing. Tabitha, I know you have an in-housing and an external agency lens, but Sabrina, what's going on your AI journey at Vodafone?
So whoever's been, obviously, Becky's session before, it's at what stage is Vodafone, and we're lucky enough we're right at the end. We're obviously with a global company. We have a whole AI board. We have AI task force, and we're really working together now with our legal teams when it comes to IP, and I know we talk about that in a little bit. But what I want to focus is really about the in-house creative agency. Where are we within that last step? So how are we using AI? We're embracing it. We are actively incorporating AI within our day-to-day work. We're also having fun with it. And I think that's something that's really, really important that everyone who is within our team or within our task force across all the different markets, we are still learning because we're no specialists, I would say. We're at the beginning of this journey. But we have seen really good progress, and what we want to do for everyone within our teams is not to be scared to using it, because this is always the question, AI is going to come and it's going to replace creativity. That's total bullshit, because AI isn't the creative mind. You are, we are. You working with it, use it as a tool, use it as a collaborator, use it for repetitive tasks. That's where we are using it. We're lucky enough we've cut down some of the stuff we had to do by 70% by introducing AI. What that means, these people don't walk out the door because they haven't got a job. They actually have 70% more time to be creative. So we're really embracing that. But as I said, while it is integrated really heavily, we allow people to have fun and to explore what comes out pretty much on a daily basis.
Let me just ask you a question there in terms of the differences in terms of in-house and agency. And the reason why we call this session the hare and the tortoise is because agencies are obviously out the gate. They can be experimenting, that there's less blockers. Internally, there's a lot of due diligence, there's policies, there's you can't use this, IT people investigating. It sounds like your team is actually experimenting. But how is that those internal things? Are they slowing you down? Are they helping you? How are they helping you balance what your team can be let loose on versus what the business is saying? Don't go near that.
So we are lucky enough within in-house, and obviously be interesting again from agency side is, yes, we have IT, we have all the beautiful tech nerds. I'm a creative nerd. Please don't take that as a negative. So we have all these people around us. We're working together. And we have the legal people. As a creative, when you look at the sheet, that's just full of words. You think, oh, can't handle that. But actually, we're working together really closely. And that allows us, to potentially be, hopefully, getting ahead of the game. Because, yes, there are moments where you think, why can't I do that? But then we are lucky enough, we really work closely across all these different departments. That allows us to understand the pain points, that allows us to go deeper, but have the specialists around the table that helps us to drive, hopefully, a little bit further ahead, and hopefully, inspire agencies, other companies to follow that path.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Holly?
Yeah, I'm loving the nature-themed session name. I just noticed that.
That was
like,
totally on
yes.
purpose, Holly.
So on brand, thank you. So yeah, it's a bit mixed for us at WWF. We were kind of introduced to AI pretty early, I would say, around nearly 2 years ago now. Our agency, Uncommon Creative Studio, probably heard of them, they brought us an idea to use AI to create an exhibition that could imagine what the future of nature would look like. So it kind of like brought it into our world pretty quickly, within sort of 6 weeks turnaround, that had to get it through our organisation, which anyone that's worked with a charity or a global NGO knows how difficult that can be. It's like turning a tanker. But what that allowed us to do was, because we did that and it was successful using generative AI for creativity, kind of allowed us to speed up and then slow down. So now we're sort of more baby steps, I guess, working with AI to help increase productivity for our in-house teams. Again, like working for a charity, we have really small teams and very limited resources. So it's helped us to make our creative in-house teams more productive, and also kind of allowed us to give us that space to be more creative. But now we are really, I guess, coming to terms and grappling with it as a global organisation. What does it mean for us? How are we setting an AI policy? We have one in the UK, we have one internationally, but each kind of office, so we have like 140 offices across the world, are now kind of looking at how they can set policy on AI, how we use it. Our IT teams kind of pulled it back a little bit for us. So with our activation that we did, which I'll talk a little bit about later, we use Midjourney. Now we can't, or not using Midjourney with our organisation because it's not within our policy. And I think the interesting thing for WWF is we're an organisation that's kind of built ourselves creatively on beautiful natural history, imagery, film, and a science-based organisation. So we're kind of grappling with, what does AI mean for that? Because we need to be authentic. Our supporters expect us to be authentic. And creating stuff with AI that's not kind of an imagined future or an imagined creative makes that kind of difficult. So yeah, we are sort of grappling with that. So I'd say we were like hare and now we're tortoise.
There's definitely the authenticity is something that comes up time and time again for all sorts of brands, isn't there? Mm. Tabitha, you've got a foot in both camps with your consultancy work. What are you seeing with agencies? Are they like full steam ahead, embracing AI in a way that in-house just can't?
I think that would be fair to say. You know, agencies typically have a lot less red tape that comes with corporate organizations. They have a lot more individuals. If you think of the talk we've just seen with the early adopters, the team, there are a lot of lone riders in agencies who are very interested in what's going on. But agencies are built to teach one another, just naturally. It's how they work. So they tend to share that knowledge quite free and easily within themselves, not necessarily outside the agency, but definitely within the agency itself. I think, sorry, I just suddenly keep spotting people I know and I want to go, hi. I think Vodafone is definitely out of the norm for in-house agencies. Most of the ones I see, there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of misunderstanding of what it can and can't do. Your point around needing to remain authentic is incredibly valid. But a lot of in-house agencies aren't thinking, well, how do I turn that into something I can use and remain authentic. They just immediately go, well, the photograph isn't real, or the video isn't real. But I think if you pull back, yes, agencies are racing ahead. That's great. Early adopters. When you're an early adopter, you learn all sorts of stuff. You also make a lot of mistakes. When you go a little bit slower, not that I'm a fan of the tortoise, but when you go a little bit slower, you get to learn from the early adopters. And you get to experiment within a slightly safer zone of knowing what everybody else has failed at already. So I think there's advantages to both sides, but I think actually what needs to happen is collaboration across the landscape.
Yeah, that's a big theme today. And also, we've talked before, Tabitha, in terms of, everyone's going straight to AI, but you have a bit of a view around automation as well, don't you? And the conflict between that terminology as well.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is people just go, oh, AI. Big concept. Large language models, generative AI, all of that stuff. They just go straight to that place. But actually, within the creative operations space, what I look at is how do I leverage AI and automation in order to make the process more efficient, to give the 70% of time back to the creatives for thinking more creatively, that kind of thing. And a lot of that stuff comes in the automation side of things rather than the AI side of things. And they are two different things. They're part of one another, but two different things. So on the automation side, it's a less overwhelming space to get into, where you can suddenly, for example, I receive a lot of emails that need to be forwarded to my invoicing software to be recorded as receipts and bills. So I have an automation. They come into my inbox. They're tagged with a certain thing. Automation takes over, automatically forwards them to that software for me. That software has another automation which just deals with them, records them for me, job done. I haven't touched them. What I used to spend 3-4 hours a month doing, now I don't get involved in at all. And I, this time, don't lose any invoices, whereas before it was very much down to human error. But that kind of optimization of process, buying yourself back time to be able to do the things you should be doing, not the things you have to do.
Yeah, that's certainly something that I'm seeing is while agencies can focus on the creativity, in-house is now focusing on the automation, getting the processes in place, adopting AI in that respect, and then you can build on that with the creativity. I just want to go to our next theme now, which is about really using this technology as having consequences, from environmental impact, there's IP consideration, right through to ethics. We had Klarna bragging about the fact that they'd saved so much money and laid off half their team. What are you seeing are the AI trade-offs? What are the things that creatives and marketeers should be thinking about, Sabs?
I mean, when you listened, I don't know who's been to Cannes. No, I haven't. But when you read one of the 50 roundups, you find out that there was one theme coming through, obviously, that it's the ethical use of AI is something we really, really need to focus on. And that is true. I think whatever you feed into it, again, I'll go really back and repeat myself, you're the driver. We're responsible of whether we can use, going to use AI with an ethical mindset behind it. If we're going to use responsibly, it's not AI who's doing that. It's not the technology, it's the humans behind it. When it comes to IP, yes, there's a huge implication. And again, that's also another thing is how you're going to use it, what you're going to use. There are platforms you can use, like you can use Adobe, Canva, Getty. They have really good, there's a lot of legal, there's a lot of stuff behind it that gives you the safety, your ability to use that. Other platforms, you just mentioned it. Sorry, he told me how to use the microphone, and now I'm doing it not right. It's Midjourney, for example, obviously amazing, but unfortunately there's a lot behind it. You don't really quite know where the stuff comes from, and you can still use it. We still have fun with it, but it's not something we would put something in front of our customers at the moment. It's just that's more for our creative process or for enhancing what we want to do. Stable Diffusion, OpenAI and DALL-E, they're working on it. But there's another thing is, we work in global campaigns, we work across different markets. IP obviously is different in every country. I think it was Japan in 2019, they've actually said that, or they've changed their law that everything that's been done by AI has no copyright. So they've basically given the free card. It's AI, 100%, you can do whatever you want to do, which is obviously the complete opposite. And that's what's dangerous if we're not behind it and paying attention. But then I am really the one, whilst I'm embracing the technology, it's the work together as the human in front of it, having the responsibility to analyse and identify what's coming back and then taking that forward.
Thank you. Holly?
Yeah, I'll talk about the environmental impacts, obviously, but just to touch on the IP piece and a couple of kind of words of advice from having done a campaign with AI. Think about prompt IP. So we use Midjourney, and the reason we're not using it anymore is because, it's so much unknown, and how you're kind of protecting the IP of what you put into the machine. So prompt IP is a thing now, and our lawyers are kind of getting up to speed on that and looking at what that means for us to kind of protect the data that we put into the top of the funnel. So I would definitely think about that. And yeah, IP, it's an issue. I recently had someone bring to my attention a campaign in the US that had been done by just a creative that was really interested in AI, and he'd taken our brand logo and kind of done some posters using AI of, it was actually a really great idea. It was like how wildlife is being made homeless. So it was kind of superseding the wildlife into like the New York subways. People might have seen it. It wasn't ours. But it had our logo on it. So, it's problematic because it's like, what do you do? Because it's kind of getting the message out there, and that was like really powerful and really fantastic, but you're putting our logo on it. It's not what we would have done as a brand. So fraught with issues. So I think, kind of always kind of be kind of mining the landscape, I guess, for what people are doing. Environmental impacts wise, and full disclosure, I am not a scientist. And I know this is a creative session, but obviously, like any big tech, like any big product, it's going to have environmental impacts. So I think, say like generative AI is being used by billions of people across the world every day. So that has a total annual carbon footprint, can touch around around 50 million tons of carbon. It's a lot, but what I would say is, like anything, if you're looking at it for your clients or you're looking at it in-house, think about putting it in as part of your environmental impact assessment. And like any impact, think about how you're not just mitigating it, but how you're restoring. So, it also uses a ton of water, like any tech though. So I think people are like worried about the sustainability elements, but my kind of answer to that is, this has been going on for years and years and years in terms of tech taking too much water from the natural environment. But companies are now definitely looking at how they assess the impact and put things back into the environment, like our partners at Vodafone, and that's helped us actually as an environmental organisation. So now AI is part of what we do in terms of offering solutions for kind of how you're mitigating your carbon footprint impact. That's the boring science stuff. We're also using AI for conservation. So it has actual really positive benefits. Like conservation needs data to exist, and we don't have enough people across the world to be able to track the amount of wildlife, or we're using it to map kind of mangrove restoration. And so like we have projects, and one in Colombia that is using AI to help us map and then regenerate mangroves, and that is saving gigatons of carbon. So if you look at that in terms of it's using billions, but then being able to replace with gigatons. So always trade-offs, like anything, right? Like any emerging anything, always a trade-off. So, but just be aware and look at it.
Yeah, I just want to come back to that point that you made about, your customers or your fans owning the brand and creating their own creative, because now we have the tools to do that, which can be brilliant in terms of a campaign, but yeah, probably a discussion for another time. But that was very interesting. Thank you. Tabitha.
So the first thing I'm going to say is I am not a legal expert, and in all honesty, I would not go anywhere near trying to be a legal expert in the world of AI. I feel so sorry for those guys, because whatever they knew yesterday doesn't work today. But when you look at it from the creative perspective, I think, and you sort of accept that there are legal issues, you speak with your legal teams, you make sure that you are aligned to whatever your company feels comfortable with, because I think that's key in terms. It doesn't really matter what the legalities are, it's about what your company feels comfortable doing. But then you take it into the creative world and you go, okay, so how does AI sustainably work for creatives? If you think that AI replaces all creative work, it's not sustainable anymore. If you think that AI is a helper and an addition to the creative process, where you have human input at the beginning, human curation at the end, and AI doing some work in the middle, then suddenly you've got a sustainable process. So if you recognize that it's great for ideation, it's great for content creation, it's great for all of those sides of things, but as soon as you remove the human from the process, you've lost those nuances, those cultural understandings, those things that humans bring that AI will never learn, ever. It doesn't matter if the robots come and take over the world. They're going to be great at making pizzas, but that's about it, right? It's the creativity is innately human, and I think if we think back through the world of creativity for the past 100 years or so, there have been so many points at which innovation-led change has happened. And the only way to actually survive, if you like, alongside that is to learn how to work with it. And I think if we accept that we are inputters or orchestrators and then curators of whatever comes out of the AI, then we're in a good place. But the legality side of things and the IP and all of that, I got no idea. That's someone else's brain.
Yeah, I love the idea of an AI sandwich there, Tabitha. You painted a good metaphor. I think that there's one of my questions was going to be, is AI coming from our jobs? But I think it's a boring question. I think we can be pretty confident that it's not. But I'm interested in terms of your lens and, with maybe an optimistic lens on AI. How are you seeing AI? How are you using AI? What are you excited about AI?
I think, yes, just like, now you throw me off. I've made notes to that.
Well, it's kind of the same question, but a bit different.
No,
I'm not going to ask you if it's coming for your job, because I don't think
we know the answer to that. What excites me is that I think for years, as a creative on the Don't Know How You Feels, you've got all these ideas in your head. And I'm not an illustrator. I'm absolutely shit at that. But it's like, how can I bring out my idea onto a piece of paper or the screen so, I could show that to someone quite quickly and they get what's happening in there. And I have this ability now, so it really helps me. And sometimes I have an idea and you go to Midjourney, you go to whatever you want to use, and it comes back with something that was quite unexpected, and that gives you another idea. So I think it's, for me, really an enabler, it enhances, it can take us to places, levels where we haven't been before. And whatever comes out, every other week, there's the whole dream engine versus what's the other one? Sora, and the whole fight that goes on in the back. Let them fight, because they're all trying to outdo each other, and that means the tech will be better, and we can do things with us. I'm not worried about it because the idea is still on my side. But having someone around the table, within our team, we can use, literally use, because it works all the time. It doesn't get tired. It can throw stuff back at you. Really use that and make the most of it and have fun with it and embrace the ideas. You can embrace ideas that can grow from it. Don't be lazy. Don't just take what it throws back at you, because that's where you're going to fail. Don't use it as a shortcut. But if you start using it as a friend, as a colleague, as a collaborator, I think it's amazing where it can take you.
Yeah, nice. So AI as a co-pilot. Holly, what's your view?
Yeah, and we talked about that, didn't we? How we can tell. Like some of our teams send me stuff and I'm like, I know you did this with AI. But I think, use it as a friend. I think what I'm most excited about, two things really. One is its ability to imagine the future. And for someone dealing with how to communicate the climate and nature crisis, that's really helpful and really exciting. That's what we did with the Future of Nature exhibition using AI. So, and like our fans and our supporters creating these campaigns, so exciting that you can paint a picture for people of what things might be like in the future, good or bad. And I know CGI and all of that can do that as well, but it can do it really quickly and really effectively and cheap, which is great for charities. And so that brings me on to the second thing I'm excited about, which it can be a co-pilot to really busy, overworked teams that don't necessarily have the then brain space to think creatively and think about something that can really advance like what we're trying to do to kind of get people to wake up to what's happening with climate and nature. So it excites me that it takes kind of 70% of the work off my team so that they can be free to think creatively and do the thing that AI can't do, which is imagination, Willy Wonka style. Like people don't know, even psychologists don't know what creates like the imagination. So I don't think a machine can ever learn that.
Does your team feel the same as you in terms of optimism, or do they have fear around AI?
No, they don't. There is a bit of fear, and I think there's a bit of fear in our organisation as well. So for sure, I think also like they're scared it's going to take their jobs. So just trying like as a leader, I think we need to try and dispel some of that fear carefully. Like obviously we have to be careful with it. And we have to kind of keep learning and know what we're doing. But for my teams, I've tried to dispel the fear because I think the fear is actually holding them back. It's like they almost don't want to use it too much because then they're like, oh God, it's going to replace me. So try and kind of break down some of those barriers. But yeah, it's really mixed. But I think the more my teams are using it and the more that they see that I'm not going to replace them with AI, that helps.
Yeah, that's a good insight though. People actually not pushing AI because you're potentially showing that something AI is going to do your job better than you. Yeah, that's a good insight there. Thank you. Tabitha?
So I think for me there's two aspects. From the professional aspect, putting in processes and optimizing ways of working with teams, whether they be in-house or agency, there's that moment where someone suddenly realizes it's not coming from my job, but it just gave me all this time back. And I absolutely love that moment. I actually seek it out in the teams that I'm working with to see whether I can get someone to say that. But on a personal level, so previous to consulting with everybody, I used to work with massive teams, global teams. I was constantly surrounded by people. My most recent full-time job was managing a team of 280 people globally. So I was having conversations with people all the time. It was phone calls, okay, it was COVID, so it was Zoom, but it was constant human interaction. And then I became a consultant. And honestly, it's a lonely job. You spend 80% of your time on your own. So that idea of making AI my friend came to the fore. So I got a headset and I started having verbal conversation with it. And I blew Emma's mind the one day because we were on a call and I started doing it. And I was having this conversation. And then what I realized was AI was taking what I thought I knew, turning it on its head and making me think about something entirely differently. So that's the exciting point for me personally, where actually now I think about problems where I knew the answer. I've done this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. And AI suddenly said, hold on, do you? And it was wonderful. But yeah, that's
Lovely.
the exciting things.
Thank you. Well, I've completely lost track of time, but I think it's probably 25 minutes and I should stop. Oh, I didn't even see that. I'm so sorry. Thank you all to the panelists. I think the takeout today, the story of the hare and the takes, the moral really is never mock others for their own pace. So I'm going to leave you all with that thought today. Thank you.